What day is it?
Hump Day. Sabaton Wednesday,
Yes.
baby. Yep, we're back
It's also
again
hump-
in
so-
your face on
also-
Wednesday.
It's also hump day.
Yes.
What do you always say? It's not
I said
recommended, but not.
recommended but not mandatory, right?
Yeah, I don't know how that translates in Europe, but it's hump day.
Yep.
And hump is also another word for something else that I will say, because it's a
Yeah.
family show. It's right here. It's not a family show.
We are SueSue, Boo Boo, who's back on the floor there, Buster behind us,
And
and
old man.
this guy,
Yeesh.
this crazy guy.
What the heck?
What am I gonna do with you?
I don't know. You know what, though? I had a Sasquatch sighting. I did. It's back there.
Oh, I thought you said meant you had a real one.
That's real as you're ever going to get.
That is not true.
Yeah, sure.
Well, we're glad to be back with you today, and
Yes.
can you please tell our friends what we're doing?
Yes, we're going to do No Bullets Fly, Charlie Brown, and Franz Stiegler. I don't know what that means, and I hope it's some cartoon character. Well, regardless, this is Sabaton History official 016, so I'm assuming this is the 16th
Yeah.
video in the series. And then we got the music queued up.
Yeah, there's an animated music video for
Okay.
it that has been requested.
Okay. So we're going to get this up.
We get some history on. Get my
Yeah,
history
get my
on.
I love it.
I'm trying to.
I know you are, and you're doing well. I would say there's probably other history that you like more than World War II history, but I love it. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Here we go.
I'm Indy Nidell,
I'm Pat from Sabaton,
and this is Sabaton History. Even in the depths of the inhumanity of World War II, you still find stories of humanity and even honor between the two sides.
Yeah, and thanks to the American author Adam Marcus, we found out about the story about No Bullets Fly.
And that's a story I'm going to tell you right now, and then Para's going to tell you about the song.
It's hard to describe if you see an airplane like so crippled, and for me it would have been the same as shooting at a parachute. I just couldn't shoot.
Okay, so I messed up this earlier and tell you that we put the English subtitles on, but that's not always what they're saying. And I think the accents is messing the subtitles up, right?
Okay,
So don't worry, I'm going to leave it like it is, but just understand.
try to listen
Yeah,
instead of look.
listen, and if you don't speak English, well,
I think they can adjust subtitles.
You can adjust subtitles. So. All right, guys,
Hope
sorry.
so.
I'm going to roll it back just a little bit.
Tell you right now, and then Para's going to tell you about the song.
It's hard to describe if you see an airplane like so crippled, and for me it would have been the same as shooting at a parachute.
It's an airplane that's crippled and
I just couldn't shoot.
December 20th, 1943. Days before Christmas, and snowflakes spatter the windshield of Ye Old Pub, an American B-17 bomber. Flying 20,000 feet above the North Sea, it's part of an 8-mile-long bomber stream on its way to northern Germany. Their target, a Focke-Wulf aircraft factory in the city of Bremen. Piloting a flying fortress, as the B-17s are known, for the first time is Charlie Brown, who has the lives of 10 young men of the 379th Bombardment Group in his hands. They ready their 12 500-pound bombs. This month, the Americans will drop over 2.6 million pounds of bombs onto German industrial and military targets. Shortly after 11 a.m., they cross the German border, nervously on the lookout for enemy fighters. Because if they can see Germany, so too can the German spotters see them and calculate their height, speed, and intended destination. Covering them as escorts are P-47 Thunderbolts, whose job it is to intercept the enemy. At 11:30, puffs of black smoke appear all over. German 88mm flak cannons are opening up, sending 20-pound shells into the air. Each has a differently timed fuse, so they explode at different altitudes. The explosions rock the pub, and Charlie can barely see a thing through the smoke. Suddenly, a red flash explodes right before his eyes. The plexiglass nose of the plane is sheared off and smashes against the windshield. The men up front are unhurt, but ice-cold winds now stream through the plane. The outside air temperature is minus 60 Celsius.
Wow.
The shelling continues. Another red flash and engine number 2 is dead. Another shell goes straight through the left wing before exploding further above. And on the right, engine number 4 is damaged and spins wildly out of control. Charlie fights the controls to keep it from ripping off the wing. But yet another shell rips through the roof. Charlie's main focus, though, is now on keeping the plane straight, as the command to drop the bombs comes over through the radio. The pub gives a big kick as the heavy cargo falls on the smoking city down below. It's time to head home. The bomber formation turns back towards the North Sea. But the danger hasn't passed. They are still over enemy territory. Charlie's crew frantically scan the sky for enemy fighters, but the sky is empty of them. Not just the enemies, though, also their own.
Look to the right and then look again. I see the
Thayer's has a
Gorgeous.
toner for every skin type, whether your skin is oily, dry, combination.
I'm sorry. We thought we had it.
enemy in the eye. No bullets fly, spared by his mercy. Escorted out of harm's way.
Now, none of the bombers have made the run unscathed, but the pub and the bomber beside them are seriously damaged. Charlie can see that the other plane is in bad shape, smoke pouring from 2 engines and dangerously losing height. The pub itself stays up, but is reduced to 2 functional engines, and both planes have fallen way behind as their formation has flown on ahead. The other plane dives to try and put out its fire. It disappears behind some clouds, and suddenly a red flash catches Charlie's eyes. The other plane is gone. His co-pilot cries out. Dark gray shapes appear on the horizon. It's a squadron of Focke-Wulf 190s closing fast. At the same time, a group of Messerschmitt 190s leap through the clouds below where the other B-17 has just disappeared. Charlie's men ready their machine guns as the 2 lead 190s aim for the pub's cockpit to take out the pilot and the controls in one attack. But Charlie turns and flies full speed toward the attackers, only presenting them the narrowest target while also shortening the distance between them. That catches the attackers off guard, and their bullets miss the cockpit and bounce off the plane's roof. Charlie's top gunner returns fire and hits a 190. It banks off on fire. The second 190 is hit by the nose gunner while trying to avoid collision. The Flying Fortress still has some fight in it. Now the 109s close from behind. The tail gunner tries to spin his guns, and nothing happens. The gun is frozen. Literally frozen. The winds blowing through the plane have now frozen the oiled gun. The attackers close in. The tail gunner signals Charlie, and he jerks the plane into a steep dive. Bullets ricochet off the frame, penetrating the glass of the ball turret beneath the plane and cutting off half of the rudder. The radio operator calls out for help, but gets only static. Bullets have pierced the radio. 20mm shells have punched through the plane and severely wounded many crew members. The tail gunner is now dead, and all of them are affected by the frost. Charlie fights just to keep the ruin of his plane in the air. Only one gun is still operable. Another attack, and the cockpit is hit, puncturing Charlie's oxygen tank. Tipping to the left, the bomber spirals out of control. Faster and faster, it spirals downwards. Gasping for air, Charlie tries to get control, but the loss of the rudder makes that virtually impossible. Upside down, Charlie's vision fades.
Fighting fire is the code of the air. Robbed us, heroes, foes.
As the bomber plunges towards the city of Oldenburg, Charlie comes to. The lower altitude has more oxygen. Immediately, he hauls on the controls, fighting the plane with all of his strength. At just 3,000 feet, under 1,000 meters, he pulls it out of its dive. Right above the houses of Oldenburg, the plane is even close enough to shear shingles off the roofs. Charlie manages to pull the plane back up. At least what's left of it. Most of the crew is wounded or unconscious, only able now to fly 135 miles per hour, 217 kilometers per hour. To escape back to England, they will have to break through the German lines again. The dreaded Atlantic Wall, Germany's fortified coastline, with the best anti-aircraft gunners in the world. Charlie makes clear that anyone can choose to bail out. Being a POW is Still better than being shot to pieces, but his men refuse. Eyes fixed to the north, they fly past the Jever airfield, where German fighter ace Franz Stiegler is about to start his engine. Just a day earlier, he brought down a B-17, and shooting down another one makes him eligible for the Knight's Cross. To Franz, though, this medal means more than just an award for being a killing machine. It means that there is sense behind his fighting, and that he has done his duty for his countrymen. He has seen firsthand what the bombers have done to cities like Hamburg and Bremen, reducing them to rubble. But his fight is not about hatred or revenge. It's about duty and survival. Franz Stiegler learned his craft during his service in the Libyan desert, where he flew with the Knights of the Desert and their star fighter ace Hans-Joachim Marseille. He has lost a brother to the war, he has seen the destruction of the Afrika Korps, and then was caught up in the desperate fight for Sicily under Adolf Galland. He would earn his Knight's Cross by shooting down the flying fortress that appears now before him. He begins his attack run. But with his finger on the trigger and the enemy rear in sight, he does not shoot. Something stops him, a feeling that something is not right. The lack of fire from the other plane makes him curious, and it is then he spots the damage the enemy plane has taken. He flies closer and pulls up alongside. Stunned by the condition of the plane and how it is still able to even fly, the only gun not destroyed is the ball turret below, but it cannot elevate its guns high enough to harm Stiegler.
I saw the tail gunner wasn't there because the guns were hanging down. Half the tail was missing on the left-hand side, practically no tail at all.
Franz knows that a few shots are enough to bring this contraption down, but there is little glory to him in shooting down a bunch of helpless men, even though their bombs have quite likely just killed his countrymen. He draws up right by the pub's cockpit. Now, Charlie's eyes are still fixed on the horizon, thinking of the flak guns at the Atlantic Wall, when suddenly a Messerschmitt appears right next to him. Imagine how that felt.
I look out the right window, and there parked on my right wing is a German Bf-109. And so I sort of closed my eyes and shook my head as you would with a nightmare. And if I close my eyes and open them again, he'll be gone. Well, I opened them again, and he was still there.
Well, Franz waves at Charlie and points down, signaling that they should land, knowing that they stand no chance against the Atlantic Wall. Charlie shakes his head, and Franz knows that they are dead men unless he helps them.
Sorry.
Beavis and Butthead are back with an all-new series, now streaming exclusively on Paramount+.
This is gonna be cool.
So he stays with them as they fly towards the Atlantic Wall. See, the experienced German spotters on the ground will easily recognize one of their own. So, as they fly across the AA guns, not a single one opens fire. Franz will wonder his whole life what the spotters think of that scene in the sky that day. As they pass unscathed, Charlie does not understand nor see what Franz has done to help him until Franz Stiegler salutes, then banks away. And only as he salutes does Charlie understand. The pub makes it back to England, barely. And it is a small miracle that it manages a landing. The commanding officer is about to award them medals for their service this day, but High Command gets wind of the story, how a German fighter pilot saved their lives, and High Command is furious. No one can know that the mission never happened. Everything is swept under the rug. Charlie and his crew are outraged, but that is that. Franz lands safely near Bremen, but he as well can tell no one what he has just done. This could get him court-martialed. Well, it could get him killed.
If someone had seen him and reported him, it could have been a death sentence, a double. So he had the double impact.
Well, the story may have just disappeared into the mists of time. But according to the book A Higher Call, in 1985, Boeing invited old fighter pilots to the 50th anniversary of the B-17. His first flights were back in 1935. Franz Stiegler was by then living in Vancouver, Canada. He was in attendance as pretty much the only German pilot and was interviewed by a local TV station, and he told his story. Charlie, the same year, wrote to that old German flying ace Adolf Galland and the German magazine Jagerblatt trying to find out who his German savior was. It took until 1990 until they truly found each other and met in person after letters and phone calls. Their startling story got worldwide attention. But you know, even after that, even so long after the war, Franz would receive calls from Germany calling him a traitor. While some Canadian neighbors shunned him as a Nazi, Franz always responded, they would never understand.
Franz, what were your feelings when you met again for the first time?
I was so happy as we met that I dropped him and hugged him.
It's trying, honey.
Wasn't easy.
It was like meeting a family member, a brother that you haven't seen for 40 years. That's about as close as I can come.
So, how did you hear this story in the first place?
As usual, we are looking on the internet for ideas all the time, and I stumbled about a very beautiful picture, which is a painting of two airplanes, and the picture is the front cover artwork of a book written by an American author called Adam Makos from Valor Studios. When I saw this picture, I was like, what's the story behind it? And then starting to read, and it was like, wow, this is a great story, and this is something we can do a song about. When we released the song, it was really interesting that I was contacted by a woman called Jovita Stiegler.
Stiegler. Okay.
And this is obviously the daughter of Franz Stiegler.
Franz Stiegler.
She wrote to me saying that her son, who's a fan of Sabaton, just found out that we wrote a song about his grandfather.
Wow.
We had just announced a tour where we were traveling in North America. And her family was based in Vancouver in Canada.
Okay.
And as we arrived there, we met with them.
That's really awesome, though. I love the little bits of these stories, like when you met Audie Murphy's family. You know, when you meet the descendants and stuff. I like that.
It's when our songs become so personal, and when we get emotional about them, because we also know that what we are doing is the right thing to do.
Right.
The song No Bullets Fly is from the album Heroes.
Right.
And here we are referring to Franz Stiegler because he had the opportunity to shoot down an enemy, but he didn't because, yeah.
And that is heroism. You don't need your medals. Just that is the essence of honor. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, that's No Bullets Fly.
And this is Sabaton History. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the Sabaton History channel, check out World War II, Time Ghost, and don't forget to support the Patreon because that's really what makes this happen.
All right, guys, we're going to go on to the music video. Do you have it in? Is it back? There's, should be in here, right? No, there's, well, no, it's
That's it, right there.
right there. Okay. All right, guys.
Wait to get to this part.
I'm Indy Nidell.
I'm Per from Sabaton.
No, that's not it. Sorry, guys.
It's December the 20th, 1940.
Here we go. This is it right here.
Yeah.
So I'm going to back it up and we're going to start playing and then we'll tell you what we thought at the end.
It's December the 20th, 1943, and in the freezing air high above Germany, Second Lieutenant Charles Charlie Brown is at the controls of his B-17F, Ye Old Pub. At 11:30, approaching the target of the Focke-Wulf plant near Bremen, the pub is rocked as 4 explosions go off right in front of the B-17. A cry comes across the intercom. We're hit! In the plexiglass nose, a huge hole had been made. An icy cold wind was being blown inside, making freezing conditions for the crew. Engine 2 had been hit, and co-pilot Spencer Pinky Luke let out an expletive as he noticed a huge hole in the right wing. Releasing their bombs over the factory, the crew turned to the north, planning to head over the coast, then turn west for home. With one engine out and engine 4 now faulty, the pub started to fall back from the formation with another damaged plane. Sam Blackie Blackford in the ball turret watched as it disappeared into a cloud bank. There was an orange flash in the cloud. Bandits, Eki shouted as 5 BF-109s streaked from the cloud bank. Then another cry. Bandits, as 8 FW-190s were spotted in formation ahead of the pub. Sergeant Bertram Frenchy Coulomb in the turret shot the 190 out of the sky. The navigator, Al Doc Sadek, took out the second. Pinky reported that engine 3 had been hit. That left just one engine at full power. The BF-109s attacked the pub from behind, swarming all over. But due to the cold wind running through the pub, most of the guns...
Okay, so I think what I did is there's an animated lyric video, and I pulled up the animated story video.
Okay.
So,
So guys, can you bear with us, or do we need to start
yeah,
over?
let's just go ahead and try to find it. I can get it here.
Okay.
Don't cancel.
Sorry, guys. Thank you for your patience. Our Sabaton people seem to be so patient with us, and I appreciate it. This is unique what we're doing. We do the history, and then we try to do the music video right after it. So bear with us. Official lyric video?
Yeah, let's just.
Yeah, right there, top.
Yeah. That was my mess up.
No worries.
So hurry up, rearm and refuel. But through the bombers damaged every see wounded men scattered the ball. Look to the right and then look again, and see the enemy in the eye. No bullets fly, spared by his mercy. Escorted out of harm's way. Blind, fighting fair, it's the code of the air. Brothers, heroes, foes.
I'm sorry to stop this, but I just wanted to say that guitar part is so cool, and they're muting. It's muting, so it's not ringing out. It's real chunky.
I don't know when this was done, but I wonder if that's Tommy.
Might be.
It's the code
this out of here. All right, so
What a story that is.
yeah, very awesome. We spent a lot of time on this video without even talking about it because of things that happened. But I don't want to spend a whole lot of time and make it too long. But at the same time, the history, of course, is straightforward. Right? They tell the history, which I'd never heard of this, and there's probably a lot of these type of stories, right, that we had not heard.
We wouldn't have heard of this one if it weren't for Sabaton.
Right.
It wasn't widely, obviously it was in the news at some point.
Yeah, of course.
But now we have something to look at.
We're so far removed now from World War II that, when I was a little kid in the 60s, they probably still knew this story, but now we're way up, so far up. But I loved it, and when it reminds me of, there are lots of stories, I think, of cooperation between the sides. And the reason I say that is because...
I know one.
Say it.
Christmas truce.
Yeah. I mean, that was World War I believe.
Yeah.
But still, it was the same idea that they're just soldiers, they're just following orders. Now, you can make a comment on whether they should be following those orders. I'm not going to make a judgment of that. They're trained. And I had a brother in the Army and a brother in the Navy, and my father was in the Air Force, and so and what they're told is, they're told uninhibited following, or that's probably not the right word, but they are, you're told to walk off a cliff, walk off the cliff. That's a bad example, but you know what I mean.
Right,
and,
but soldiers in formation, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in World War II, I think that the tendency is to perceive all Germans as Nazis, and they weren't. The Nazi Party was in power, right? But not all Germans were Nazis.
Right.
And so I do believe that most of the Nazis were cruel sons of bitches. I believe that. But I think that the regular, even the colonels and soldiers, they weren't, right? So like this guy, he didn't see any need to blow that up just for a Royal Cross medal. He didn't see any reason to blow them up because they were already damaged.
Yeah, it would not been
honorable.
If somebody was going by who wasn't going to get the medals, if they shot them, they probably still would have shot him. But he was going to get the medals, and he did not because, so it's honor. It's honorable.
I thought it was very cool how he escorted the damaged plane so far out that he could get back home to England, and no one fired at him because it was him.
Such a beautiful picture.
Mm-hmm. Very nice.
It really is. I mean, that can be a metaphor for so many things in life, on your wings.
Yeah.
Take someone on your wings, take them to safety.
Like an angel, like a guardian angel kind of. And that's another thing. We believe in God. We have no problem if you don't, right? But I believe that there was something divine that needed to happen for both of those guys to live so long. I believe that. I believe that for a certain time, whatever it was, and it couldn't maybe even have anything to do with them getting back together, but they needed to live, and they lived. And
right, they both survived, and they had stories to tell, and then life to live, and other things to accomplish, and then they came together. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'd like to see more.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's documentary stuff we can look up now about these two guys, because it's just a very sweet story in the midst of reactions we do that are not sweet about Sabaton, honestly. I mean, some of them, but I mean, they're hard stories. So.
They're hard, a lot of times they're hard stories.
Yeah, so this is really refreshing. I love this.
Well, going back to
humanity.
And that's was my point. Going back to the thing about the Nazis, we've had some of our German friends and subscribers talk about it, being ashamed and embarrassed to be a German because of the Nazis. It was a small fraction of the country. Yes, they followed Hitler, but they didn't really know, or they didn't choose to know what he was doing, right? So things like this, he was a German, but he was an honorable German. He wasn't, he was fighting for the Nazis, but You know what I mean? So it's a dichotomy, but still,
Right.
he was an evil guy apparently, right? And so I think we just need to keep that in mind, you know.
Check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Exactly right. I don't know who said that. But one other thing I wanted to mention, and we'll go back to the rap thing, is the plot to assassinate Hitler. There were a bunch of them. And I think the very last one was where Klaus von somebody, I think it was Klaus. Maybe I'm getting mixed up with another Klaus. But he took a briefcase into a meeting with Hitler and set it down. Of course, it didn't kill Hitler, it killed some other people. But that's an example of a guy who saw what was going on and he wanted to end it. So honor, right? There was honor in Germany at the time.
Absolutely.
I'm done. I'm sorry. I'm done.
Well, and also that was a long time ago, so I hate that people today would feel or be made to feel ashamed of something that they had nothing to do with. But anyway, yeah. So what do you think of the music, honey?
I thought it was great. And I was thinking when we were watching this, we've had this discussion before, they're very accessible. Right? Their lyrics are straight story. Their music is this like 3-chord, power chord kind of stuff. I love it. You know, I certainly like other things that aren't quite as simple, but their music's very simple, and when it's supposed to be happy, it's very happy. When it's, you know what I mean? So I will be humming that song in my head because it's so simple.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to explain it.
Yeah.
I loved it essentially. I like those guys.
Yeah. And I wonder if Tommy was with them at that point.
Could be. You mentioned that before too.
Yeah, I know.
So
you know, I like Tommy.
Yeah, I know you do. You want to
have him as my fourth son, actually.
Other son you never had.
Right. Right.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for
so
putting up with us.
If you like this video, hit like, subscribe, share, notify, comment down below.
Comment down below there.
And
so
be
silly.
blessed.
And thank you.
Yes.
Come in. Be blessed. Don't hurt anybody.
Nope.
Yeah, after watching it, don't hurt anybody. If they're already falling, you know, they're not going to make it. Don't shoot them again.
Exactly.